Good morning. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm not Dries yet, but I'm Jerome, and I'll be taking the next 3 minutes to say something hopefully smart about the environment, the community, responsibility, and opportunity. As a PaaS provider, responsibility is everything to us. Security, customers' data, performance, you name it, everything. And environmental impact. As much as we want to believe in the cloud, carbon neutrality, we think that it's better to focus on reducing our usage of infrastructure instead of just trying to carbon offset an ever-growing number of servers that are running. So in our belief, responsibility is actually efficiency as technical people. It means running the most energy-efficient application on top of the most dense deployment system, on top of the most energy-efficient infrastructure running in the most carbon-efficient energy grid. All of this is kind of simple, but efficiency requires a lot of collaboration from the different actors that we just named. So that means that collaboration at Ort is something that we think the community, Drupal community, for instance, is very good at. So that's a good news. We are well equipped to do that. Drupal, actually, as another good news, is very big on the internet. Like some say, Drupal.org, for instance, that it powers like 2% of the internet, and the internet is responsible for 2% of the emissions. So we could say that if we have good core performance optimization and they reach the scale, then they could have some very important impact, like kilotones, megatones. This is all numbers, but this is good because we are pretty good with numbers as technical people again. And here be dragons, though, because greenwashing is real. So as much as we like numbers, they are often a good way to be mistaken for science. And as Edward Deming said, in God we trust, but always have to bring data. This is an interesting quote. As a company, Platform SH has made the choice to become a benefit corporation, a B Corp, in a way as a kind of commitment and incentive to be better in this way. And we would really like to encourage you to get to this data and use them in a way to improve the performance of the application, the Drupal core for the developers, eventually for the agencies to use sustainable design to get better performance, and for us, for instance, to move from CLAs, the service level agreement, to something more ambitious like carbon level agreements. In a word, it will be, like the old mantra, don't be evil, but be excellent to each other. That's the end. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for all the very good work that you do for Drupal community. And we hope to see you, maybe. We have a keynote with Nestle on this subject, so please come see us. And now, with a very responsible thunder of applause, I would like to invite Dries on stage. Bye-bye.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a great night. It feels really, really good to be back in person. And it feels really, really good to be back in Prague as well. It's been 9 years since we were in Prague, so it feels pretty good. I wanted to kick it off with this photo. I know some of you have seen this photo before. It has sort of done the rounds on the internet. How many of you have not seen this photo? All right, quite a few people. Interesting. Good, but anyway, if you don't know what this photo is, this is me in my dorm room 21 years ago or something, and it's the dorm room that I started Drupal from. And now over the years, people have made fun of my hat quite a bit, or at least me wearing that hat. But surprisingly, very few people, actually no one, to the best of my knowledge, has made fun of my safari vest. But it's actually not the hat or the safari vest that I wanted to talk about with this photo. Actually, what I wanted to highlight is the chair And some of you might recognize that chair as an IKEA chair. And it's a special chair because my dad actually bought this chair for my mom when she was pregnant of me. And so it's kind of a special chair. And as a kid, I loved sitting in this chair. I loved kind of hanging out in the chair. And I loved the chair so much that when I moved out of our house into my dorm, my mom gave the chair to me. And so the chair moved with me to my dorm. And it's in that chair that I started Drupal. I remember sitting in the chair coding many, many hours. Probably not the best chair for my back to sit coding in. But it is a special chair. And in fact, it's so special that when I moved from Belgium to the US, I actually put the chair on a boat and transported it across the Atlantic to Boston. Because the chair was almost 44 years old. It started to have quite a bit of wear and tear, and so my wife, Vanessa, she had it reupholstered. So it looks a little bit different. The color changed a little bit, but it's the same chair. And anyway, I was sitting in my chair not too long ago, and I was actually uploading some photos to my site. And I asked myself, like, why do I keep uploading photos to my site? You know, wouldn't it be easier to just put them on Instagram instead of dealing with uploading them to my site? And so I started really asking this question, you know, sitting in my chair, like, you know, why do I keep using Drupal? Why do I keep doing all these things? Because, you know, granted, it is a little bit more work to upload photos to your own site. And so the more I thought about it, the more I came up with some reasons. And the first reason of why I like to upload photos to my own site is because I like to own my own data. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And by the way, photos are very precious to me. I'm told I have bad memory, which is probably true. But I don't always have good visual memory, and so photos really help me memorize things. And so that's why I like about, that's why I take a lot of photos, why I upload them to my site, and why I like to have control over them. You know, I don't want them to get lost. And the problem with uploading photos to other sites is that sometimes these things get lost. You know, here's MySpace, a famous example, and you can see from these email snippets that they would frequently lose music and customer, content, which is kind of crazy to think about. And they didn't have backups, so they couldn't even restore the content. And of course now, 10 years later, MySpace is completely gone. So all of that content is gone. Now some of you may say, well, that's 10 years ago. These things don't happen anymore, but they do. Just last week, I was reading a website about photography, and they talked about how this Leica store had a Facebook page, and they just lost their Facebook page. And that was, you can see the date, that was on September 13th, so just last week. And Facebook hasn't been able to restore their page. And so now they're asking everybody to rejoin their new group and start reliking everything that they liked. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And obviously devastating for these store owners, right? So this still happens. The second reason why I like to upload photos to my own site is because I don't like how proprietary platforms can limit my creative freedom. And you've seen it. Websites built with proprietary software, they often look the same. They have the hero image at the top, they have the logo on the left, they have some contact information below that. They pretty much all look the same. And that makes it hard to stand out. That makes it hard to be remarkable. And that shouldn't be a surprise, right? If you are working within the constraints of a closed platform, you often have to start from specific templates, and there's only so much that you can change. And to me, that is really sad, because the differences often matter. The details matter. And the details give you unique identity. So recently, I was reading this Twitter thread, and it gave this example of the phone box or phone booth. And obviously, the one on the left is very remarkable. It's an icon. It's well known. The photo box on the right, is not that remarkable. It could literally be anywhere in the world. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows where the phone box on the left is from, right? And so what gives that phone box on the left its distinctive character? Obviously, it's the color, it's red, but it's also all the details, right? It's the moldings around the door, the ornamentation at the top of it, and the phone box on the right has basically no interesting details. All right, and you see this everywhere. Here's another example of a doorbell, and the bell on the right is the Amazon Ring. It's obviously a mass-produced bell, and the challenge with detail is that sometimes people don't like details, and therefore details are removed. There can be no details, especially when you're mass-producing things, and it leads to these kind of boring, neutral, clean slate designs, whatever you want to call it. And some of that happens with proprietary software too, that are trying to target everyone. And this is in stark contrast with the early days of the web. And actually, in the early days, websites were called home pages. Home pages. I like that, because literally visiting these pages felt like stepping in somebody's home. There was so much detail, so much identity. You could actually learn a lot of things about people by visiting their home pages. Much more interesting than Facebook pages, in my mind. Now, in this particular example, maybe there's a little bit too much detail, a little bit too much identity, but still, why not? And then the third reason is that I don't like how these platforms treat my friends and family. If I upload a photo to Instagram, everyone, including my friends and my kids, they'll get tracked. These platforms aren't about connecting you with friends or family. These platforms are about making you scroll for hours, making you consume little bite-sized pieces of content so they can learn a little bit more about you and target you with ads. So all the way, you get tracked with these platforms. And so despite them being social media platforms, I don't find them to be that social. In fact, I was thinking about this, and I don't recall having made a single friend on Instagram in all the years I've been using it. I'm connected to a lot of people I know, but have I made a new friend? I don't think so. I can't think of anyone. And so they're more like social monetization platforms than social media platforms in my mind. And they go through great lengths to track people. Some of you may know that Apple recently, I think in the last 12 months, added a feature to give you additional privacy. It's like tracking protection was added to iOS. Are you aware of that? I think some of you probably are. Now here's what they did, like Instagram and Facebook, they now ship. So the tracking feature, let me explain this a little bit more. The tracking protection feature was added to WebKit, so the browser engine that ships with iOS. And so instead, what Facebook and Instagram did is they decided to ship their applications with a built-in browser, like their own browser built into these apps, so that they could keep tracking people. So when you click on a link on Instagram or Facebook, it looks like you're in maybe Safari or WebKit, but actually you're in Facebook or Meta's browser. And the only reason they do that is obviously so they can keep tracking you. So they basically have worked around these things. And anyway, long story short, I don't love that. I don't love it that people get tracked when I share a photo. Friends don't let friends get tracked, if you will. And so for these reasons, I'm worried about these things, and I want to keep uploading photos to my site. And it's frankly not just about Facebook and Instagram, it's about all the proprietary systems. Whether it's Adobe, Sitecore, Contentful, Content Stack, Optimizely, Wix, Squarespace. You don't know what they do. They're not necessarily fail-safe. They can crash, they can lose data. You don't know what's happening under the hood, what they're tracking, and ultimately, you may not have the creative freedom to create a lot of identity and details, right? You're limited by these platforms. And so I really want sort of good software to win. We should all want good software to win. Software that's open, that's flexible, that gives you unlimited freedom that's accessible, that's pro-privacy, secure, has no lock-in. And that is why I use Drupal for my site. And that's why I upload photos to my own site, right? First of all, Drupal lets me control my code and my data. And that's nice, because obviously I can make backups of my photos, but I can also do whatever I want to do. And for example, I can choose to prioritize accessibility because I have full control over my code. And here's a quick example of that. This is a screenshot of WebAIM's 2022 accessibility report. All right, and what it says is that my little site, my little homepage on the web, happens to be in the top 1% websites on the web, which I don't actually know how that happens, but it is. And on top of that, it's ranked 823rd in that 1 million site in terms of accessibility. So basically, in terms of accessibility, my site is in the top 1% of the top 1% of websites in the world, and I'm proud of that. And I believe that was only possible because I had access to my code, that I could make all the changes I needed to make and wanted to make to my site to rank that high. Now compare this real quick with Facebook and Instagram. Obviously, their rankings are much higher than my site. They're like ranked number 2 and number 7. But if you look at their accessibility score, it's a lot worse. Like, these are multi-billion-dollar organizations that can't get to the same accessibility score. And obviously, these tools aren't perfect. You know, they use automated scanners. But the point still stands, right? I can fix the accessibility issues of proprietary software. I have no control over it. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's one of the other proprietary content management systems. So this is just one example of what I can do when I control my own code. Second reason is that I have unlimited creative freedom. Now, my website isn't the most, you know, spicy website out there. I'm not a graphical designer, but, you know, Drupal empowers identity and self-expression. You know, I believe that is deep in our DNA. And it's actually one of the best things about the Drupal project. We have a vibrant community, and we give people the ability to express themselves exactly how they want to. You know, whether it's with bacon or tattoos, you name it. And lastly, you know, Drupal leads with safety and security, which is really important. By default, Drupal doesn't ship with trackers. Now, I'm not saying every tracking of users is bad. There is some really good tracking too. You know, a lot of websites aspire to deliver personalized experiences, which can lead to better user experiences. So these are examples of good tracking. But very often, tracking doesn't really add any value. And it's invasive tracking, right? And so for that reason, my site doesn't collect any information. I have 0 trackers. It aspires to the privacy of the printed book. And I think you can do that too, if you want it. And so for all these reasons, you know, I keep using Drupal. And so with Drupal, if you can dream it, you can build it. There's no limits to what you can do. You can implement your own backup strategy, so you never lose data. You can inspect how Drupal works and change its code. You can determine how much you care about accessibility and spend time and effort making that better. You can decide if you want to track people or not track people. And so with Drupal, you're really in charge, you know? Basically, with Drupal, the code is yours. It's not my code, it's your code. Like, you can do whatever you want with it. And that's a very powerful thing to have. Makes you fully in control of your own destiny. So for all these reasons, I upload my photos to my own site. Some of these photos are actually very old photos, by the way. I found a box in my parents' attic with old photos, and I scanned them and I uploaded them to my site so you can see some of my grandparents and other people in my family on this slide. Now, I do have to admit, I occasionally still upload photos to Instagram. But I have maybe, I don't know, 100 photos on Instagram, maybe 200. But I have 10,000 photos and more on my own site. So, I have about 50 to 100 times more photos on my own blog than on Instagram. And every time I upload a photo to Instagram, I actually feel like this, I don't feel good about it. I'm going to play a little clip here. Kind of hard to see, huh?
Put your right hand in the box. Your mother bade you obey me. I hold at your neck the gomme java. Poison needle. Instant death. The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain.
Why are you doing this?
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
Anyway, that's how I feel like. It's like putting my hand in the box, I don't know what's going to be in there. Spiders, blades, sharp objects, pain. Anyway, joking aside, you should ask yourself, what are you doing to escape sort of the social media trap? And what are you doing to escape, proprietary software in many ways? And of course, it's not just about me, me and my little website. It's about all the websites in the world. I believe there is many, many people and many, many organizations that want to build ambitious, web experiences that are secure and flexible and scalable, that have no lock-in, that are mindful of privacy and that lead with accessibility and that are differentiated and unique. I mean, there is tens of thousands, millions of people, and that's what they want. And it's really important because today, the web is ingrained in every aspect of daily life. At first, the web was just a vehicle to share information, education and even entertainment. But today, it's how people pay the bills. It's how they stay in touch with friends and family. It's how you manage your own healthcare. It's a workspace, it's a social space, it's a utility, and it's still the best way to get access to information and to get your questions answered, right? And for those reasons, it's important that we do everything that we can to protect the open web. I think that's really important, because the web is like this utility, like water and electricity. It's not going to go away, right? It's ingrained in everything that we do. We have to protect it. Now, I want you to know that Drupal is one of the most prevalent and relevant solutions in the market. And it is good software with capital G and capital S. And Drupal is actually very important to the preservation and the growth of the open web. It's driving the open web. And it is a public good, which means that the end users of Drupal, all of us, we are collectively building and maintaining Drupal as well. And so I hope it's clear to you that we have to care about the open web. And I hope it's also clear that caring about Drupal is the same as caring about the open web. It is a way to care about the open web. And contributing to Drupal is a great way to advance the open web. All right? And so with that big vision in mind, that big kind of bold statement in mind, sometimes I get frustrated. I'm sure we all do, but I get frustrated that we don't always promote Drupal better. And if you think about it, Drupal has grown from this little, content management system in my dorm to a basic CMS to today one of the most powerful platforms for ambitious site builders. We're a leader in content management. We're a leader in digital experience management. And take composability as an example. Composability, some of you may have heard about it, but it's one of the hottest trends in our market right now, right? You'll hear people talk about composable commerce, composable architecture, composable content, composable everything. And Drupal is actually really good at this. If you look at the definition of composable, it has a bunch of different things, but I simplified it a little bit here. But it starts with being made out of components or modules. And guess what? Drupal is very modular. We have like 40,000 plus different modules or components. But composable isn't the same as modular, right? So there's these additional things on top of modular to be considered composable. And one of the things is that it's not just an architecture for developers, but it's a new way of doing business. So one of the things you have to do to be considered a composable platform is you have to provide no-code, low-code tools to enable business users to participate in the building of these digital experiences. And obviously, Drupal does that really well. Like, you can do so much from the UI. We have layout builder. You can create content types all through the UI. And so Drupal does that really well, too. The third piece that is often associated with composability is the decoupling of the front end, as well as the ability to push content and data to different customer touchpoints. And guess what? We've been investing in headless and decoupled architectures now for, 9, 10 years? If you look back at the history of Drupal, we were working on these things before it was even called headless. And we ship with a lot of headless capabilities out of the box. The last piece about composable is package management. Because if you have all these modules, all these components, it becomes really hard to build and maintain these composable architectures. And so, again, if you look at the definition, they talk about the needs of having a catalog, a place where people can browse modules, find modules, discover modules, and also easy ways to manage modules, dependency management, version management, all of these things. And guess what? We literally use a tool called Composer to manage all of these things. And with the things that we do around recipes and distributions and project browser, we're making these things very easy. Because one of the things I didn't put on the slide, but it's kind of related to package management, is what they call prepackaged business solutions. Kind of a business term, I guess, for distributions. This idea that you have to bundle modules or components along with some configuration and content into a higher level, reusable thing, like what we're doing with distributions and recipes. So Drupal checks a lot of these boxes, but we don't always talk about Drupal in that way. I'm not saying we have to talk about Drupal in that way every single time, but often we're not part of the composable conversations because we just don't market ourselves that way. And maybe we should. I really think we should. Drupal is also doing really well. This is a little preview, one-slide preview of the Drupal Business Survey that Jana and Michelle organize every year. And I think, Jana, you're going to publish the results later this week or next week or something. I don't know exactly when. But this is just one little data point from the survey. And what it shows is that, and so basically they survey all of the Drupal agencies, right? And they ask them how things are going, are they growing, where are they investing, all these kinds of things. And one of the things that came out of the survey is that Drupal organizations, Drupal agencies are growing. Their project pipeline is growing, which is a good sign. And then last but not least, Drupal continues to support amazing organizations. Our references are incredible. I don't know if there's another content management system that has the same references than Drupal has. We're the platform that is used by some of the biggest websites in the world, some of the most impactful websites in the world, some of the most unique and differentiated websites in the world, and some of the most iconic brands and websites in the world. And so I prepared a little video for you, which I'll play next.
Think for a moment of the brands and companies shaped by Drupal. The power brands. The makers. The institutions. the cultural icons that unite us, the ones that make us sing. The agile, the resilient, and the ones who support them. The developers, the millions across the globe, the marketers, the front line behind the glass, the road warriors, the people out in the wild fighting every day, the agencies, the masters of strategy and emotion. So what do all these people have in common? The digital platform that powers some of the most exciting experiences on the web. Drupal.
Yeah, we have so many things to be proud of. You know, so many amazing organizations using Drupal. And we need other people to know about these things. You know, we have to promote Drupal more, promote Drupal better. And again, as I said, we have the best references in the world to promote Drupal. And so I'm determined to help find ways to promote Drupal better. We also just had a 2-day board meeting with the Drupal Association. And we're also determined to help promote Drupal better. And videos like this are just one way to do it, of course, but there's many, many other ways to promote Drupal to different audiences, etc. But hopefully, these kinds of things make you really proud to be part of the Drupal project. All right, so I get frustrated that we don't promote Drupal better. And hopefully we can fix this in the future. But I also get a little bit frustrated sometimes that we don't move faster, that we don't innovate faster, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that as well. And I think I'm not alone, actually, because at DrupalCon in Portland, like 5 months ago, we had a bird of a feather session about this. And we talked about how it can be hard to contribute to Drupal, especially Drupal core. And we made a list of all of the things that people perceived as difficult or slowing down innovation. And you can see some of the things on the screen, like having to comply with coding standards. People said, well, it can take weeks of back and forth, a lot of nitpicking just to get the coding standards right. Or people said things like, accessibility reviews, that can take a while, because sometimes we have to wait for weeks for somebody on the accessibility team to have time to do a review of our patch. Backwards compatibility, it's great that we offer it, that we make the upgrade path easier, but managing backwards compatibility is actually really hard. And it is, and that slows us down too. And so I agree with all of these things. In fact, I recently found a sort of caching inefficiency in Drupal. I was playing with my own site, uploading photos, and I found a caching bug, I think it is. But I haven't contributed my fix yet. And with Drupal around the corner, or DrupalCon around the corner, I just haven't had time to go through all of the steps. I intend to, and I would have, probably, if it was like an hour of work and a couple of days of back and forth to get the patch committed. But I also knew, wow, this could take weeks and months, and therefore, I'm going to wait until after DrupalCon, And probably a lot of people think about it that way, like me. And if I think about it that way, I'm sure many others do. And so I want to talk about that, right? And so at first I was like, oh, maybe we should get rid of some of these things, make it faster that way. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that each of these steps are actually very important. They're very important because of the impact that Drupal has on the world and on the digital landscape. We have to care. We have to care about reliability and stability. We have to care deeply about scalability and security and accessibility. We made a commitment to accessibility, and we're proud of that commitment. We don't want to walk that back. We care about these things. And it's really important for our reputation that we do all these things. Right? It's part of being good software. Remember in the beginning of the presentation? And so all of this thinking in my chair made me realize that part of being good software is caring about end users, all right? And so this is actually a photo of my dad. He's not a Drupal user. He's a medical doctor. But I have a story. You know, one day, he's a medical doctor, one day he has a patient in his office, and the patient started talking about Drupal. And I don't know how they got onto that topic. But she was basically telling my dad, like, I have a big problem with my Drupal site. I don't know what to do, you know, yada, yada, yada. And of course, my dad is like, you know what? My son started Drupal. You should talk to him. And then he goes on and actually says, you know what? Let me write down his cell phone number so you can just call him. And he will fix your problem. And she actually did call me. So I talked to her, and she actually runs a very small nonprofit. She's on Drupal 7, and they have a budget. I forgot the exact numbers, but let's say our annual budget is 40,000 euros a year. And 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, they spent 40,000 euros building their Drupal 7 site. And she explains how, obviously, it's a great site, but they went kind of above and beyond, integrating it with CVCRM because they manage their members and donations. And so they have this, not just a marketing website, they have like this, you know, complex platform that's at the core of their nonprofit. And in her mind, she said, you know, we were going to have this website for 10 plus years. Like, I didn't think about needing a budget to upgrade my site after 5 years. And then when I got quotes from some of the agencies, they told me it was like, I don't know, 40,000 euros again. And we don't have that money. So I don't know what to do. I cannot afford to upgrade. So I just wanted to tell you that story because when we decided to extend the Drupal 7 end of life, I thought about that woman and her nonprofit, you know, and it actually made me proud that we made the decision to extend the end of life of Drupal. And when I think about her, I think about the 100,000s of other people like her that have a nonprofit or some website and they can't afford to upgrade. They just can't afford to upgrade. Even if we said Drupal 7 is end of life, that would not make them upgrade because they don't have the money to upgrade, right? And so extending the Drupal 7 end of life was just one example here, but it was not always well received. It wasn't always well received, and I understand why. But it is a great example of how we care about end users, right? And so there's so many organizations that care about end users and that we can care about. And so when I was young, I was sitting in the chair on the left. I didn't really care that much about end users, to be quite honest. I was just focused on building software and shipping software, and it's fine if things broke left and right, and that's, in a way, how we got to years and years of breaking backwards compatibility. But now that I'm a little bit older, 21 years older than in the photo, I guess, I do care about end users. And I developed a perspective that caring about end users is important. And some people might think, well, you can't do both. You can't move fast and innovate and care about users, but we have to do both. It isn't an or, you know, it's an and. If we want to be a great software project, we have to innovate fast and care about end users. And I believe we can do both. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that, right? So the question is, if we don't want to lower the bar, we don't want to say accessibility, we don't care about it anymore. No, we want to keep that bar high. We want to be good software, reliable, scalable, secure, all of these things. But we want to go faster. How would we do that? And the answer is not to lower the bar, but making the bar easier to achieve, which is two different things, right? And so one of the things we can talk about is our tools. And you already heard a little bit about this yesterday, but we are in a very big project moving from our homegrown collaboration tools to GitLab. And GitLab will provide us opportunities to automate a lot of things. And that will lower the bar. And so I have a video from the Drupal Association that talks a little bit about the progress they've made on GitLab, and I'll play it now.
The ultimate goal of the GitLab Acceleration Initiative is to make contributing to Drupal easier and more rewarding. To do so, we're modernizing Drupal contribution by moving from our homegrown tools to GitLab. We believe we can significantly reduce the time from starting a contribution to when it is committed by eliminating the friction points that we know take up too much contributor time. We hope that people who have felt it was too difficult to contribute in the past will see real reasons why it's worth giving it another try. We've already made great strides. Since 2020, contributors have been able to use merge requests instead of patches to contribute to Drupal. Furthermore, a complete contribution can be completed using the GitLab Web IDE and remote dev tools like DrupalPod, with no local environment setup required. I know the mentors today helping new contributors are teaching them these tools. And we're not stopping here. With the upcoming move to GitLab CI and GitLab Issues, we'll have powerful new tools to save contributors even more time and empower them with new capabilities. Drupal Association team member Fran Garcia Linares is going to give us a look.
Thank you, Tim. Drupal.org issues have served the community well, but if you are used to GitHub or GitLab, you know that Drupal.org issues have many small points of friction that can be improved upon. When Drupal.org moves to GitLab issues, we will have a more polished contributor experience. With GitLab, Drupal contributors can easily add files to issues by drag and dropping them, use Markdown syntax, create task lists, add labels, assign an issue to one or multiple users, etc. All of that can be done inside the editor. Those may seem small, but none of them are possible on Drupal.org today, and all of them together will be a big help. And there are even more new features and improvements. Once the issue is created, users can comment in threaded discussions or cross-link to related issues. You can see how easy it becomes to comment on an issue now compared to the sometimes overwhelming Drupal.org process. Many of the existing dropdowns on Drupal.org will be converted into labels, simplifying vastly the UI. Merge requests will become much easier to use. Creating a merge request for the current issue will only be one click away, and you don't need to leave GitLab to do it. The current issue management and listing in Drupal.org does not have many project management or prioritization capabilities. Tools developed by the community like Concrete Kanban help better visualize the current state of an issue queue for a project. With GitLab, each project gets Kanban boards out of the box. You can have multiple Kanban boards in case you want to have front-end versus back-end issues, or code versus non-code issues. Or you can now prioritize issues just by dragging them to the top of the column. How else can we simplify the contribution process? Well, when contributing to Drupal, patches often go through an extensive review process. It often involves going back and forth with one or more reviewers. We can simplify this with more automation. Some projects are already trialing GitLab CI that will replace the existing Drupal CI. CI, or continuous integration, is the practice of automating the integration of code changes from multiple contributors into a single project. For example, we used to check coding standards manually. Well, we automated the checking of coding standards by integrating it in Drupal CI. We're also checking it in GitLab CI. Someone contributing gets nearly instant feedback about it. The automations don't stop with checking coding style. We can add tests for deprecated code or even accessibility reviews. Some of these checks are being worked on by the community, and once ready, they will be integrated into the GitLab CI templates provided for all Contrib modules. Contributors will also gain a lot of flexibility on what software to test against. They won't be limited to a fixed set of PHP or MySQL versions. These were just a few of the features we wanted to highlight, but there are many more that we will all benefit from. In addition to all of the above, we'll also have commit signing, approval rules, code owners definitions, push rules, multi-user assignment, merge request dependencies, CLI tools, and any new features added to GitLab platform that might help us accelerate innovation in the future. You might be wondering how some of these features might help us go faster. Let's go through an example. The current list of Drupal core maintainers is pretty extensive, and so is the number of issues created in Drupal core. We could create a code owners file that will assign different parts of the code to the maintainers in charge of each section. We can then use the merge request approvals feature, which will read automatically from the previous file. Next time that a merge request is created, GitLab will automatically detect who are the owners and suggest them as reviewers. This setup can be applied to any module and can also be customized as needed.
Thanks, Fran. For a community as large as ours, with so many contributors working on Drupal.org every day, building the bridge to these new tools is not easy. When we put all the pieces together, we see a picture emerging, a contribution experience that reduces friction, automates repeatable tasks, and lets you as a contributor focus on what matters, making your innovative idea a reality in Drupal. Some of these features are available already. Merge requests, the web IDE, DrupalPod, code owners, these are all things that you can use today. Some are coming soon. GitLab CI for more projects, the option to opt in to GitLab issues. Week by week and month by month, these improvements are rolling out on Drupal.org. By the end of the year, we hope you'll be able to see the benefits of this transformation. Lastly, I have to thank the wonderful team at the DA who's implementing all this work to empower you to build a better Drupal. Want to learn more? You can join the initiative in the GitLab channel on Drupal Slack, or attend the Drupal.org update panel here at DrupalCon. Thanks.
There you go. Pretty exciting, huh? Yeah. So it's exciting to think about what GitLab can do, to Drupal and how it can help automate and streamline things. Obviously, as I said before, not everything can be automated. Accessibility reviews being that example that I gave. I think human reviews will always have a role and be important, but by automation, a lot of the things, we can really accelerate Drupal development. And I was actually talking to Angie Byron, webchick, about that in email, and I think she took that also to Twitter, about this notion of like instrumenting, like from the time somebody submits a merge request or a patch to the time it gets kind of merged or committed. Like, let's study what happens in that process. How many days are we just waiting? How much time does it take for X to be completed and Y to be completed? And see if we can continuously try to shorten that time frame, right? And tools like GitLab will help a lot. And when I talk to people inside and outside of the Drupal project, that is often what they want. They're used to contributing to other open source projects that admittedly are a lot smaller, but the feeling that they have is they contribute something, and then literally 3 or 4 days later, that contribution will be merged into the project. And in Drupal, sometimes that takes, weeks or months or years, depending on what we're doing. And a good goal for us would be to try and get it down to days. And I'm not talking about like hard, some of the most complex things in Drupal, but I'm talking about simple things in Drupal. Like a simple contribution, we should be able to get that committed in days, right? And then of course, if we decide to rebuild the field system or something, if that takes months and years, that is a completely different kind of thing. But for simple things, we should benchmark, measure, instrument, and continuously improve the contribution process. And we're going to get a lot better tools to do that, which is pretty exciting. The other thing is process and culture, right? Because automation and tools is not everything. And I wanted to touch upon this briefly, maybe a topic for another Driesnote, but when you keep a bar as high as Drupal's, which is wonderful, perfect can become the enemy of good, right? And I know this because I'm a perfectionist, but sometimes I see people become afraid of making mistakes because the stakes are also high. There's a lot of people that depend on Drupal. And I think that fear can also sometimes hold up important progress and faster progress, right? And I think it's important to recognize that fast progress can only be made when we're not afraid of making mistakes and when we have a culture that is accepting of that. Mistakes are okay, you know? And again, that's something that I had to learn myself too over the years. And one of the tools in my toolbox, if you will, is this notion of reversible and irreversible decisions. And I've seen people in the project start using that reference more. Jeff Bezos actually talks about one-way doors and two-way doors. Are you familiar with this concept? The idea is basically a two-way door is a door you can walk through. If you don't like what's on the other side, you just walk back. You know, it's a reversible door. It's a two-way door. But other doors are one-way doors or irreversible decisions. So you go through the door and there is no way back. You know, and it's important to categorize each decision along these two dimensions because two-way doors or reversible decisions you can make quickly. You know, you should be able to make quickly because if you make a mistake or the decision wasn't complete or you missed something, that's okay because you can fix it still, right? But the irreversible doors, or the one-way doors, I should say, the irreversible decisions, there we have to think long and hard before we make the decision, right? And so it's little tools like that. If we have them in our toolboxes, so to speak, we can also streamline some of the decision-making and maybe accept a little bit more risk where appropriate. So I just wanted to mention this, but maybe, again, a topic for another Driesnote or maybe some of our brainstorm sessions or BOF sessions. And the third piece, of course, is capacity. It's people. Like, how do we get more people into the Drupal project and, by extension, the open web? And that's kind of the last part of my presentation today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think the way we bring people into the Drupal project is by making the software really good. You know, I think everything starts and stops with Drupal being great. Software that people want to use. That's why people adopt Drupal, or the main reason why people adopt Drupal. It solves a problem that they need to solve, and it does it really well. And so we continue to make a lot of great progress on the software. Since the last Driesnote, which was just 5 months ago in Portland, Drupal got a lot better. You know, Olivero became stable in default, which is super exciting. CK Editor 5 became stable in default. That was still risky 5 months ago. We're almost ready for PHP 8.2, which, by the way, hasn't been released yet. So we're not late or something. We're doing great, which means developers will be able to use the latest and greatest version of PHP, which is awesome. We're ready for Symfony 6. Again, developers will be able to use the latest and greatest. And we've also managed to move a lot of things out of core. I'm not sure if you saw my Portland keynote, but I said this is something we might be able to do in Drupal 11. And then we proceeded to do a lot of it in Drupal 10, or for Drupal 10, which is exciting. So we removed modules and themes and all of these things, which again makes Drupal smaller, which help us focus our innovation, which will make Drupal a better framework for developers as well. So pretty exciting progress just in the last 5 months, and all just in time for Drupal 10. And of course, some of these things are available in Drupal 9, right? You all know that process. And then we continue to do great work on Project Browser and automated updates. These are two big strategic initiatives. They will not be done in time for Drupal 10. It was never really the plan, but hopefully shortly after Drupal 10, they'll be included in, let's say, Drupal 10.2 or something like that. The exact details to be determined. But a lot of great progress was made on those initiatives as well in just the last 5 months. And I wanted to show you a video of that as well. So let's play it.
Hi, I am Srishti Bankar and I am a contributor to Project Browser. You may remember Johanna from DrupalCon Amsterdam in 2019. She has a dog grooming business and takes reservations on her website. In the past couple years, millions of new households started owning pets in Europe, so her business is booming. With the increase in interest in her grooming services, it became harder to keep a personal connection with her clients. Also, automated bots figured out that posting to her website brought search engine benefits. So she decided to add a bot blocking feature to her website. She hopes to engage her clients on the website more, so potentially other improvements are needed later. So she decided to try Project Browser module, which will make it easier to find modules for her needs and add any new feature to the site later. She needs to use Composer to add Project Browser to the site. Then she can install the module on the Drupal user interface like any other module. Now she has a new tab on the extension screen that allows her to browse further projects. Here, the recommended filters are applied by default, under which only the modules that are actively maintained and are covered under the security advisory policy are shown. And these modules are sorted as per their usages, so the most popular modules show up first. She then goes to search for bot blocking modules and finds anti-bot. Once she finds what she was looking for, she is able to get instructions on how to use Composer to add this project to her site as well. However, there is a lot more potential hidden here. If she uses the experimental version of Project Browser, she can directly install on the web UI thanks to its integration with Package Manager. Package Manager is a backend feature that allows to manage Composer packages on the user interface in Drupal. So when she presses the button to install the extension, it gets pulled with Composer and installed in the Drupal environment. Now all that is left is to configure it to show up on the website as intended.
Hi, I'm Teresa Granum, and I am a contributor to Automatic Updates. Johanna already went through a major version update before, so she understands the importance of keeping her site up to date to prepare for Drupal 10. But due to all the demands of her favorite dog clients, she neglected keeping her site up to date. The best of us fall into this trap, but luckily, the community has been working on a solution for this. The easiest way for Johanna to get up to date and keep secure is with the Automatic Updates module. Since this is another contributed module, she can go to Project Browser and install it from there. After installing the Automatic Updates and Automatic Updates extension module, Johanna realizes that her EU cookie compliance module is also out of date. She can update it with the Automatic Updates extensions module. When she upgraded from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9, Johanna had to manually run Composer to update a module. Now, she can use a submodule in Automatic Updates to update the EU cookie compliance module to be compatible with Drupal 10. Now that the module is updated, Johanna realizes that she missed a core security update, which is now possible to apply in the user interface. Since Johanna is doing this in her development environment, the codebase is writable, and she can apply and test the updates before deploying them to the live site.
There you go. Yeah. Pretty exciting to see all the pieces come together, right? We're not there yet. These modules, these initiatives are currently being developed as contributed modules. People can use them, test them, contribute to them, obviously. And then the next step, as you learned about yesterday, in the initiative's keynote, is to start moving them into Drupal core, so we ship with these capabilities out of the box. Now, I will say, agency owners that I speak to, they sometimes complain and they say, why do we need Project Browser and why do we need automatic updates? We wouldn't use that, we wouldn't use that. And that might be true, advanced users might not use these things, but I think they're great examples, again, of caring and making it easy for people to be part of Drupal and the open web, right? It helps people discover Drupal, it helps people stay on Drupal, and I think that's really important. And it doesn't take away anything of the advanced features that advanced users may not use. I also like the idea of being able to use Project Browser to promote all of the great innovation that is happening in the contributed modules world. Right now, it's hard to find, but there's some really cool things happening, like the gin theme, for example. One of the ideas that we have is, like, can we promote some of these things in the project browser, give it more visibility? It's a little bit like if you use the App Store on your phone, Android or Apple, they will suggest things to try. That idea, and I think it's another great way to encourage innovation and people building cool things, and then kind of bringing that to market that way. So, pretty exciting things. We're on track for Drupal 10. Drupal 10 is still scheduled to be released in December, so in just a few months, I guess. But then, once we release Drupal 10, you will have about 11 months to upgrade from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10. 11 months might scare some of you. I see some of you kind of get a little bit more pale. Could be the partying, could be the slides. But the reason why we have 11 months is because some of the third-party dependencies that Drupal depends on are end of life. All right, so we have to upgrade, or you'll be running insecure third-party dependencies, which is not good. Now, to help with that, we've been really focused on easier upgrades. Like, obviously, we're not just focused on project browser and automatic updates, but we've also been focused on easier upgrades. And I have a video for that as well. And in the video, we're going to give almost like a tutorial of how you upgrade from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10. So if you have to upgrade, you can always watch this video, press pause, see what happens, press play again, and kind of use it as a how-to if you'd like. All right, so let's play it.
In 2019, we showed how Johanna updated her simple site from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9. Along with upgrading contributed modules, she also needed to fix some of her custom code. At the time, Dries said it would be great to automate all of that. Fast forward to today, and she's of course preparing for Drupal 10. Let's see how Johanna will use these tools to move forward from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10. Johanna's site is secure now, but how ready is it for Drupal 10? She remembers to use upgrade status again like she did in the Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 upgrade. However, since she did not need the module in the past 2 years, she removed the module from the site. Johanna installs it again, this time with Project Browser. The current version of upgrade status is a lot more helpful than it was last time. It is now oriented around suggested next steps, showing what to do with each extension. Thanks to automatic updates, the EU cookie compliance is now Drupal 10 compatible. Next, her custom module again needs code updates in this transition. When she upgraded to Drupal 9, this was all manual work, but now there is significant automation available. Upgrade status not only reports the list of problems it finds, but also identifies that some of those can be fixed automatically. So the suggested next step for her custom module is to run Drupal Rector on it. She needs to add Drupal Rector as a development dependency and run it on her module. Based on our testing of all contributed projects, Drupal Rector covers around 90% of all errors found in contributed projects. So this has a good chance to fix most, if not all, of Johanna's problems. And indeed, once she runs upgrade status on her module again, the only problem left is in the info file. For problems identified that cannot be fixed by Drupal Rector, upgrade status links to change records that explain how things change and what to do to fix your code. In this case, the info file needs to be updated and the change record explains what to do. She fixes that manually and all is good. Now that all of her contributed projects are ready, she's able to update Drupal core itself. While the beta is not ready for live sites, she can try that on her development environment. Once her Composer update is finished, her site is now running on Drupal 10 Beta 1.
There you go. Pretty cool too. Yeah. If you're new to Drupal, admittedly, that probably looked pretty difficult, right? I don't know if anyone is new to Drupal. There's still a lot of steps involved, but I can tell you that is vastly better than how we upgraded from Drupal 8 to 9, for example. There's so much more automation. It's going to be so much more easy this time around. And so I think we can truly say that the upgrade from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10 will be the easiest upgrade in the history of Drupal. And it's not just the easiest upgrade in the history of Drupal because of all these additional automations that we'll have with this release, but also because the, let's say, general readiness of the contributed modules ecosystem. And you can see that in this slide. And basically, there's already more than 1,000 modules ready for Drupal 10 and stable, which we didn't have this time around for Drupal 9. In fact, today, 3 times as many modules are ready for Drupal 10 beta compared to when we had beta 1 of Drupal 9. All right, so you can see that tooling helps the ecosystem, the module ecosystem, get ready. If you take a few steps back, I wanted to create this, not so academic chart, but the point that I wanted to make, if you take a few steps back, I think it's important to recognize that Drupal is getting easier. I think it's becoming easier to maintain, thanks to project browser, automated updates, all these automations, but it's also getting easier to contribute to with things like GitLab. And I wanted to sort of imprint that in a lot of you because obviously with Drupal 8, we kind of reached maybe peak complexity, but since Drupal 8, I do believe things are getting easier. And I feel like when I talk to people, a lot of people feel like Drupal just keeps getting more and more and more complex. But we're working really hard to actually make it easier, and I do believe that that is happening. And that's a result of a lot of different things we've done. You can see some of them in gray on the slides, all the way from getting really good at backwards compatibility. We've learned so much in the last years, and we're getting better and better at that, to the GitLab automations, to even things like starter themes, which I haven't even talked about. But it allows us to basically generate a theme for you very quickly, and also allows us to make changes sort of to the core themes. I didn't explain that very well, but it allows us to go faster. It will make things easier, which is the point. Rector, as you saw, to help with automatic removal and replacement of deprecated code. All these things are making Drupal easier and easier, which I think is really good news. I wanted to give a big shout out to everyone that contributed to Drupal 10 so far. Amazingly, that's 1,500 different people so far, and over 500 organizations that have contributed to Drupal 10, core, if you will. So crazy numbers, but it's really good to see so many people helping. And then once we have Drupal 10 released, and once we have maybe delivered some of these initiatives, I would really love to see us focus a little bit more on innovation. And hopefully we'll have the tools with GitLab to go faster. So hopefully stars will be aligning to focus on innovation. And I'll talk more about this in the future, but I'm thinking about things like continuing to invest in headless and making Drupal a really strong content platform. Make it really easy to work with different JavaScript frameworks as well. Along the same lines, Drupal's core strength is content and data modeling, and there's more we can do to make that even more powerful, but also easier to use, I would say. Same thing for data modeling. I think we should think about maybe having a reference application in one of the JavaScript frameworks, whether it's React, Svelte, or Vue. And in fact, there is a Next.js for Drupal. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It looks very, very good. It's very, very powerful. I think we need more of those things. I'd love to see us continue to embrace Symfony. Symfony is doing very, very well. If you look at their adoption metrics, they're basically growing like crazy. The fact that we adopted Symfony is really good, right? Drupal is built on a growing framework, but there's still a bunch of Drupalisms in Drupal as it relates to Symfony, and I think we can do more to embrace the Symfony framework. And that's an area where everybody can contribute to. We can do that in small steps. It doesn't have to be, crazy big steps of work, right? I think the recipes initiatives is super exciting. Alex talked a little bit about it yesterday, if you saw it. There's more sessions about it, but I'd love to see that happen as a long-term believer in distributions. Would be nice if that continued to evolve. And again, a lot of these things we can start today. We don't have to wait for Drupal 10 to be released. We don't have to wait for these other initiatives to be completed. A lot of it can start today. A lot of it has started today. A lot of it is happening in Contrib, so please do get involved. For some of the larger things, we also have to find new ways to fund them. And the Drupal Association is really evolving some of its thinking around this by leveraging certified partners and having programs that encourage Drupal agencies to contribute more in terms of code and maybe larger chunks of code. We're also going to be go after grants. It could be government grants, could be philanthropic grants. We have a team capable of doing that now, so we're excited about giving that a try. And if we can get more contributions that way, if we can get more funding that way, we can start tackling some of these bigger initiatives with dedicated engineering resources. So pretty excited about that. I'm sure you'll learn a lot more about that in the coming, let's say, year, when we're ready to talk about more of the details. But to wrap up, Drupal helps foster an open web. And I hope we can all care about an open web. And I hope we all remember that caring about Drupal is caring about the open web. Making Drupal better is making the open web better. Drupal is one of the most prevalent and relevant solutions in the market. We have amazing references, amazing organizations adopting Drupal, and we need to promote that better. We need to promote that better to end users, to developers, to everybody. And we also need to continue to innovate on Drupal. Third, our active initiatives are often designed to caring about bringing people to Drupal, having people stay on Drupal, and in addition to that, in extension to that, bringing people to the open web, right? And then fourth, we're very focused on making contribution easier and easier with things like GitLab, which hopefully is very exciting, because if we make contribution easier, we can also innovate more and innovate faster. So to conclude, I wanted to say this. When I upload photos to Instagram, I have this kind of nagging feeling sometimes. My hand in the box, maybe a needle to my neck kind of feeling. But that feeling really comes from not doing, I should say, what I think, and from not doing what I say. And so it made me realize that I'm the happiest, personally, when what I think equals what I say, and what I say equals what I do. And I believe Drupal gives me, and hopefully you, the opportunity to do so, to live your values. And so uploading photos to my little website makes me the happiest, because it means all these three things are aligned. And it also connects me to the open web. And it nudges the world towards a better place rather than a worse place, right? And so it's not always easy to use Drupal. It's a little bit harder to use than using a cloud service or a SaaS service. That's true. And it's not always easy to contribute to Drupal either. It can be easier to contribute to a small internal project than to try and contribute to Drupal core, which admittedly is harder. But I do believe that it's worth it. People often take the easy path, but it can be worth taking the harder path because, you'll be happier and hopefully have a bigger impact. So this is a perfect time to get involved. We're all together here at DrupalCon. If you want to be part of our mission, if you want to be part of Drupal 10, please do get involved. There is not a better place in the world to get involved than right here this week. So Thank you. We'll take a break, I think, and then we'll be back after the group's photo for Dries Q&A, and I think there's other sessions happening at the same time. So, thank you very much.
Customer expectations. They're always shifting, changing, reinventing. And the path to digital transformation is always evolving to meet them. This requires integrating new technologies, communicating and deploying across a myriad of touchpoints, devices, and channels. Which is why you need a digital experience platform as a central technological foundation for digital customer experiences.
Sorry, we're actually going to take, is this working? Yeah. We're taking a group photo real quick in this room. And so if everybody could stay in this room, we'll take a group photo, and then we can go out and have a break. Thank you. If you want to be in a photo, please stay. If you don't want to be in a photo, obviously, you can leave.
In any language, to build and pivot and build again, giving you cross-channel continuity across the entire customer journey, putting monolithic solutions behind you and getting out in front of customer demand. That's the power of Acquia DXP.